Hello everyone. This video is gonna be about motivation. And let me tell you, I am super excited because I'm gonna share some stuff with you that's personal, but also should really pump you guys up because I know when I think about it, I get pumped up. So I'm gonna be sharing with you a couple of my uniforms, but behind these uniforms, I'm also gonna be showing you where I came from. So I have some really cool props. You guys are gonna have a lot of fun. So without further ado, let's just dive right in. Our first uniform is gonna be my Army uniform. Now I served in active duty in the Army and it changed my life, like completely. Like I would not be anywhere in life if it wasn't for taking a chance and signing up to be in the Army. It was the best thing I've ever done. And let me tell you, it wasn't without its obstacles, hardships, but it is literally like the cliche quotes. Because I was challenged, because I went through a lot of hardship, ups and downs, I grew a lot and it changed me forever. And let me tell you, this uniform means a lot. Now, don't get me wrong, when I joined the Army, I was pretty undisciplined, immature, and I got into trouble. But as I progressed and learned a lot and, learned discipline, got disciplined and went through a lot of military schools and a lot of experiences and a lot of situations, I grew. I went to airborne school, which was super cool. Just like you see in the movies, I jumped out of a plane. I went to air assault school. I jumped out of a helicopter, repelled from one. I went to combative school, level 1, level 2, got beat up people. And I deployed to Afghanistan in 2009. And that was a very hot time to go to a combat zone. Not only did I go to Afghanistan, but I got promoted in a combat zone. I got promoted in Afghanistan and I really flourished. I really worked hard and focused on the mission. And let me tell you, this was a huge honor to do. I was also an NCO, a non-commissioned officer. I had a chance to lead soldiers and it was just crazy. I also had multiple jobs. I worked on Kiowas, Apaches, UAVs, you name it. And saw some things, definitely went through some hardships, saw some people who I was close to pass away. Like I said, I let some of my team members down when I was immature, when I was first in the military. Went through some kind of issues with leadership at one point in time, got a little bit hurt. But let me tell you, it was a crazy game changer. But it is something that I am proud of. It is something that people are proud of for me. People who support it, people who respect me for it, my son, my wife, people just, a lot of people in our country, they really honor and support and love our service members. Let me tell you, I know I do. I love my service people. But before I did this, I got to show you the uniform I wore. Now, guys, this is the uniform I wore a couple of years before I joined the military. Now I know some of you are like, what? And maybe some of you are like, but it's okay, you could judge me. I mean, I am okay with sharing this with social media. And the reason why is because the whole goal of this video is to motivate, to pump you guys up, and to let you know that everyone has history or some type of past. When I was young, when I was about 14 years old, I got into trouble and I wore this for almost 4 years. Yep, you heard that right. No high school, no experiences, no prom, no sports. This is what I wore. And let me tell you, that could be a whole entire video. And I want to do it one day because I want to share that story with you, because that 4 years was some of the craziest 4 years I've ever experienced in my life. And let me tell you, I ended up utilizing a lot of the hurt and pain and experiences that I went through when I was wearing this. And it made me the person that I am now. It made me the person who could end up doing this, who could end up going to airborne school, who could end up going to air assault school, who could become an NCO, who could deploy and actually be part of a team. And on top of all of that, it also showed me to be competitive and also to push myself. because while I wore this uniform, I ran under 11 minutes. It was like 10 minutes or something like that in a 2-mile. No one ever beat me in a run in my units. Let me tell you, that feels awesome. But wearing this uniform, before I got to wear this, I wore this, guys. And when I wore this, right, this is all I ever heard. This is all I ever heard from everyone. As a matter of fact, my parents weren't even there. They didn't even want to spend their breath saying this. But this is all I heard from the people around me. So how did I go from this uniform to this uniform? Well, it's because I refused to quit. I refused to get into drugs. I refused to get into crime or to believe that. I knew inside myself that I could truly do something if given the opportunity. And let me tell you, I might not be, an Elon Musk or, Steve Jobs or somebody like that, but somebody who went from wearing this to this, and then where I'm at in my life, I'm proud of myself. And one of the things I learned is resilience. And I wanted to do things to push myself. And that's where we prelude into our other uniform, or suit, as you would call it. And that's our racing suit. I've always loved cars, but when I was at Embry-Riddle University, I saw people racing at Daytona. And we're not talking about NASCAR. NASCAR is cool, but I'm talking about IMSA. I'm talking about real Porsches and Lamborghinis and Ferraris and Vipers, racing, road racing. I was like, how do you do that? And I wanted to do it. So fast forward, I went to Skip Barber Racing School. We went to that school, we finished. After we finished Skip Barber School, we bought a Miata, we built it, we put a racing roll cage in it, and then I became an HPD driver, then I became an HPD instructor, and then I did a lot of track time, and then I finally went out and I raced in Sebring, in Daytona, Homestead. But this wasn't just your regular track days. This was racing with 20 or 30 Miatas on the track, chaotic, going all out. And let me tell you, it was one of the coolest things ever. It was one of those things that you had to have a license for. You had to have the right car for. And you also had the courage to go out there. And let me tell you, it is definitely something cool. And even though I never won a race, and even though I was a mid-packer, I'm very proud that I went out there and I experienced that, because at the end of the day, it's not about being the best at something. It's about trying, and that's exactly what I did. So after being an incredible runner in the military, I got hurt. I had knee surgery. I ripped my patella. It took me years to have confidence to even jog. Well, fast forward about 15 years later, and I wanted to finally accomplish a big dream of mine, and that's to do an ultra marathon and to do a hard marathon. And here within the past 3 years, I accomplished that, even in my mid-30s, which technically is a great age to run, by the way. But this is a great example of not quitting. So I did a marathon in the canyons and in the mountains. Usually a marathon is just on a flat road through a city or through, whatever map you have. But here in Colorado, when you do a marathon, you do it through the canyons. You do elevation. You run uphill, and you run uphill for miles on end. And then you run downhill, and then you run uphill. I did that. And the crazy thing is that when I look outside my house, I could actually see the canyons and the mountains that I ran on and that I completed. And I did it. But here's something I want you guys to know, right? Because again, you see the front side of it. You see the medal. You see me saying, I finished a marathon, but I finished third to last. You heard that right. Third to last. I could say it was my knee. I could say I didn't train enough, but it was hard. It was hard for me. I knew that doing this was going to be a lot harder than doing a normal marathon. And I clearly pushed myself, and I clearly was close to failing if I was third to last, but I didn't quit. And why didn't I quit? It's because I remembered that I don't quit. I remember inside of myself, even when I was in this place and I was getting beat up by a group of guys on a daily basis, that I could just quit and I could just go home. But I knew inside of myself that I have more than that. I have more to give. And I was using not only some of the anger, but also some of the anger towards myself, knowing that I'm better than that. And then we have this tiny bottle opener, which is kind of pathetic when you think about something like this being so small, being so big. And that reminds me about kind of life, about how sometimes we think that the biggest achievements might be, like the car behind me or a house or a college degree, but it's this bottle opener. This was an ultra marathon. And if you don't know what an ultra marathon is, it's running longer than a marathon. And I did that in mountains. I literally ran up mountains to get this. And I remember that I cried, I remember I was mad, and I remember that I limped to second to last place. 9.5 hours it took me to do this. 9.5 hours of pure agony for a bottle opener. But I completed an ultra marathon, right? I chose that. Yes, there's a hint of anger, just like when you salt, like if you put salt and pepper on your food, there's always gonna be a bit of salt and pepper in somebody who's ambitious or competitive if they came from a hard background. And that's because that hard background will always stick with you. So if you guys have a hard background, it's okay. Use it as salt and pepper to push yourself, right? Now, I wore this for 4 years. I didn't go to high school, right? They just kind of signed off on the paperwork, right? We had little modules and we didn't learn anything. I graduated from a pretty good university, not with a high GPA, I'll tell you that, but I graduated with no high school background. Of course, I don't have those uniforms because they only rent them to you. But that gives you an idea, guys, that I finished college without even going to high school. How? Going to tutoring, pushing myself. A lot of times I wasn't interested in the class, so I just kind of tried my best. I wasn't always perfect, but I pushed myself, right? And that's the whole story about this video, is motivation. It's motivation for anyone who's gone through any bullshit in their life, anything that's really been hard and that they're wondering what to do with all of that. If you're young or if you're old. And instead of it, when I was young, I would use it against society, being mean, being angry, being rude. I now use it, that energy, to push myself, to try new things, to take risks, to do challenges like this, to see what I could do, to see what I could achieve. And that's exactly why we're making this video, guys, is because at the end of the day, you don't quit.